video is brought to you by the Critical Language Service. To learn more about our Arabic classes for schools and other small groups taught via telepresence, visit our website at www.criticallanguageservice.com.
Hi, welcome back to Lesson 4, Part 2. Now let's look at present tense or incomplete tense in Arabic. By now you have seen and heard a number of verbs. Among them, يستمع إلى he listens to. أعرف, I know, أعرف. تسافر, she travels, you travel. أتذكر, I remember. أتذكر as in أتذكر كل دروسي في اللغة العربية, right? أحفظ, I memorize as in أحفظ كل الأفعال في اللغة العربية. يدرس, he teaches, يدرس. أستاذي يدرس اللغة العربية كل يوم. تعمل could be she works or you work as in هي تعمل واجباتها كل يوم. And we call these verbs أفعال في المضارع. مضارع is the present tense and it usually means that the action we're talking about, the action we're using is still incomplete. So that's why we call it an incomplete tense, because when I say, for example, أحفظ, I'm still memorizing the and the action is not complete in the present. Okay, let's take a closer look to the present tense or the incomplete tense in Arabic. المضارع can refer to an incomplete action usually taking place in the present. It means what we mean with by incomplete means that the action is happening in the present and it's going to continue in the future. We don't know if it's going to finish soon or when. For example, in English you would say he teaches when you want to say that his career is teaching, that he teaches every day, and he is teaching as in he's teaching now. In Arabic it's the same thing. We would say هو يدرس or هو يدرس الآن, and that's just to add the progressive now meaning. But when you say هو يدرس, you're implying is his job is teaching or that he's teaching now, and that's how we use المضارع, or actually one of the uses of مضارع in Arabic. So as we said, it can refer to a repeated habitual action, like in English you would say she works at the UN. هي تعمل في منظمة الأمم المتحدة. UN is منظمة الأمم المتحدة, United Nations. Or it also refers to a state, such as in English you'd say I know. In Arabic it's the same. You say أنا أعرف or just simply أعرف. We use the مضارع, the present tense, for that. So keep in mind, any action that stretches over a period of time or takes place repeatedly will involve مضارع. As I said, it's the equivalent of progressive and ongoing actions in Arabic. In English, that's how we use it in Arabic. And it can also express a habitual or repeated action, such as in English you would say I study, and you mean I study every day, or I used to study. In Arabic we say أنا أدرس, and you can say أنا أدرس كل يوم to say that it's a repeated or it's a habit. Or also when you're referring to an action that was a habit, that was repeated in the past, you can use المضارع and you say أنا كنت أدرس. Notice that أدرس is مضارع form. So أنا كنت أدرس كل يوم في الجامعة مثلا. In Arabic, the subject of المضارع is expressed on the verb itself with a prefix or a combination of prefix and suffix, and not with an independent pronoun. Let's look at these three verbs. أتذكر, يستمع إلى, تعمل. So let's take a look at تعمل as in هي تعمل, she works, or you can say أنت تعمل. And we can say it without using the pronoun, independent pronoun, because here we have a prefix ta, the prefix ta, and it means you or she. So أنت تعمل, هي تعمل. So here for يستمع إلى, we should know from the ya, the prefix ya, that we means he listens to. هو يستمع إلى. The ya is the prefix for هو instead of independent pronoun. Same for أنا أتذكر. Notice ألف. When you see the ألف, you know that the subject pronoun I is speaking in the sentence. So these are the prefixes that would tell you what is the subject instead of having an independent pronoun. And the reason we do this, like in هو يدرس, we don't need هو, we said we have the prefix ya, is because هو is redundant unless the context calls for some kind of contrastive emphasis, such as هو يدرس, or other stylistic considerations. When you just want to emphasize the subject, you would say هو يدرس. Otherwise, you really just don't need it. And you just say يدرس. It's more than enough. Actually, it's perfect. And unlike standard Arabic or formal Arabic, when you don't need to use the subject pronoun, in dialects such as the Egyptian dialect, pronoun subjects tend to occur with مضارع often and are less contrastive than in other varieties. That means in using the subject pronouns, you're not actually emphasizing anything. It's just the common use of the language. For example, in Egyptian you would say هو بيدرس اللغة العربية, which means he studies, or he's studying Arabic. And this is normal. It's not like I'm saying, oh yeah, he's the one who's studying Arabic in Egyptian. If I were to use it in standard Arabic, that would mean I'm emphasizing the subject, whereas in Egyptian dialect it's really just doesn't mean anything. It's normal. You know by now that the prefixes and suffixes that indicate person remain the same for all مضارع verbs, and that the stem of each verb remains constant as well. Let's look at some charts, shall we? So in this chart, we have in فصحى, verb to do, أنا أفعل, I do. So as you can see, we have the stem فعل plus the prefix a for the pronoun, subject pronoun أنا. Same for أنت تفعل, ت equals أنت. أنتِ تفعلي or تفعلين. Notice there's a combination of prefix and suffix with the stem, which remains intact in all examples. هو يفعل, prefix, stem. هي تفعل, she does, but in the action kind of doing, not the auxiliary verb to do. So هي تفعل, prefix, stem. نحن نفعل, prefix, stem. The noon is the prefix for نحن. أنتم تفعلون, again we have a combination of suffix and prefix with an intact stem. Another variation of أنتم تفعلون, we have تفعلوا, and these depend on the grammatical form of the verb, the position of the verb in the sentence. هم يفعلون, same thing, we have a combination of prefix and suffix with an intact stem. It's just like a game of Lego once you get the hang of it. Really fun. And on this chart, we have the use of مضارع in Masri. Notice that in Masri, you have what we call main verbs and secondary verbs. And the distinction is main verbs in the sentence have ba in them. As in, أنا بعمل, أنت بتعمل. أنا بعمل, أنت بتعمل. The alif in orange is the prefix, replacing the subject pronoun, the independent subject pronoun. أنت بتعمل. تعملي. Notice it's a prefix and a suffix for أنتي. هو بيعمل. هي بتعمل. إحنا بنعمل. أنتوا بتعملوا. هم بيعملوا. And also we have combination. For secondary verbs, you just have the suffix or the prefix and this combination of prefix and suffixes to show the subject. أنا أنت أنتي هو هي إحنا أنتوا هما. But you don't need the b prefix because it's a main verb indication. For example, you could say أنت بتعمل إيه question, and as you can say ب is with بتعمل, so it's the main verb. What are you doing? أنت بتعمل إيه. But with, for example, أنت عايز تعمل إيه. So the verb we have is تعمل, but we have عايز. So what do you want to do? عايز is not technically a verb, but it's a verb like word, so it takes away the b of the main verb from تعمل. So أنت عايز تعمل إيه versus أنت بتعمل إيه. So عايز makes تعمل or بتعمل a secondary verb. Now let's look at the difference in conjugating between the verbs in فصحى and the verbs in عامية, and specifically main verbs in مصري. So as you can see, أنا, I, the subject pronoun I, أنا أفعل, ألف, and أنا بعمل, it's the same, but without the B that indicates the main verbs. So أنا بعمل and أنا أفعل, ألف, instead of أنا. Same for أنت تفعل, تا, أنت بتعمل, تا. Notice that the difference is in the vowels rather than the letters. And again, we don't have the ba that indicates a main verb. أنتِ تفعلي, تفعلين, or أنتِ بتعملي. Notice we have a combination of suffixes and prefixes. Same for هو يفعل. See, the ya is the replacement of هو بيعمل, ya also, and the be is the main verb. By now I think we should just ignore it. So you have the stem فعل and عمل, and we add ya in both فصحى and عامية. نحن نفعل and إحنا بنعمل, نون instead of نحن. أنتم تفعلون. Notice a combination of prefix and suffix, تفعلوا. And same for Egyptian عامية, بتعملوا, تا and واو ألف instead of أنتم. But you have to remember in عامية we actually use the pronoun, but we also add the suffixes and the prefixes. And finally we have هم يفعلون. Notice the prefixes and suffixes, and يفعلوا. And same for عامية, هم بيعملوا, واو ألف and ياء instead of هم. Now the good news is, once you know the stem of any verb, you can easily conjugate it. Trust me, this will be the best thing ever for you. So we talked about main verbs and dependent verbs in Egyptian colloquial. Let's take a closer look. So as we know in spoken Arabic, we use verbs with and without be prefix. And as you know, the use of be indicates that the verb is the main verb in the sentence, like مش عايز أكتب حاجة and بحب أكل حلويات. Between the two sentences, you have two verbs, أكتب and بحب. And as we said, if you have a ب with a verb, then it's a main verb. So بحب أكل حلويات. أحب is the main verb. Now let's look at مش عايز أكتب حاجة. When a verb is followed by a verb-like expression such as عايز or another verb, it cannot be written with be. So again, مش عايز أكتب حاجة. We have عايز, which is the equivalent of I want, to want. I don't want to write anything. So the verb after عايز does not take ب. So another example, عايز أروح البيت. I want to go home. عايز, I want, and the verb after it does not take ب. Example with ب, بشرب قهوة or قهوة in standard Arabic. I'm drinking or I drink coffee. بحب أكل حلويات again. أحب is a main verb, so it takes ب. بشرب is a main verb, so it takes ب. Main verbs versus secondary verbs. Formal Arabic also distinguishes between main verbs and other verbs. It does so by changing the suffixes of main verbs, as opposed to the spoken Arabic when it adds a prefix for this purpose. In formal Arabic, the persons أنتم, أنتِ, هم have two ways of being written. Both variations are used in formal Arabic. The difference between the two is grammatical. So we have أنتم, plural you, with تفعلون and تفعلوا, both أنتم, تفعلون, you do. هم يفعلون, يفعلوا, they do. أنتِ, feminine you, تفعلي, تفعلين. Okay, now if you take a look at أنتم تفعلون, هم يفعلون, أنتِ تفعلون, you'll notice that they're all main verbs with noon at the end. As for تفعلوا, يفعلوا, تفعلي, these we call dependent verbs or secondary verbs because, as you can see, the noon at the end of the verb is replaced with an alif, and this occurs because of the position of the verb. Usually its grammatical function in the sentence, and it's important to make sure that you know the meaning doesn't change if the noon is absent from the word. So whether the verb is a main verb or a secondary verb, the meaning is the same.